So Shalom, today's daf yomi is Kiddushin daf Ayin Gimel. We're going to start on the bottom of Ayin Beis and Beis on the bottom of 72b, where the Gemara, we're just going to finish off our discussion of yesterday's daf, and the Gemara there says, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, Halachak Rabbi Yossi. The law is like Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi argued with Rabbi Meir, and Meir said that the Mamzerim will never be purified. Rabbi Yossi was of the position that they would be purified. And so Rabbi Yehuda says, name of Shmuel, Halachak Rabbi Yossi. And he says that if we would not say that halacha was like Rabbi Yossi, he says Rabbi Yossi, if he loved Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, if Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Shmuel would not say the law is like Rabbi Yossi, then have a Mapik minin tzavarnei kolarmin. Then if the law wouldn't be like Rabbi Yossi, that the mamzer would eventually be purified when they became mixed in amongst the people, then what would happen is that Eliyahu Navi, when he would come and tell us who's purified, would have to come back and actually remove the people via chains and via chains around their necks. So we see from here that actually the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi, who says that the law is like Rabbi Yossi, who says that the mamzer will eventually become purified. Now the Gemara says, Tan Rabbanan, ger nose mamzeres, that if there is a ger, if there's a convert, he's actually allowed to marry a mamzeres. And that's the position of Rabbi Yehuda, that a convert can marry a female mamzer. And the reason is because Rabbi Yossi is going to be in the position, and we'll see, as we'll see today, that when the pasuk says that a mamzer is not allowed to marry into the kahal Yisrael, into the community of Israel, that the converts are not included in that category, and therefore Rabbi Yossi says that a convert can marry a mamzeres, but there's only one catch: they can marry each other, but nevertheless, Rashi says v'havlad mamzer, that the offspring will be a mamzer. So they're allowed to get married, but the offspring will be a mamzer. So that's what Rabbi Yossi says. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda says, ger will use some mamzer, that a convert cannot marry a female mamzer. Because he said, Rabbi Yehuda's in a position that a ger is considered kahal Yisrael. And then the Gemara continues, whether it's a convert or an even meshuchar, a freed slave, or a halal, this offspring of a union of a kohen when somebody's not allowed to marry, mutarim bekohenis. All of them are allowed to marry a female kohen. My taima, the Rabbi Yossi, the Gemara says, what's the reason why Rabbi Yossi says that a ger can marry a mamzeres? The reason is kamisha kahal that the Torah writes 5 times the words kahal in this context. It says lo yavo lo kahal. Rashi says it says an Ammonite and Moavite cannot come into the kahal. Lo yavo em kahal. Then about the door, the Egyptians, it says door shlishi yavo em kahal. The Mitri and Adomi, and also so there it says by both the Egyptian and the Annamites, and also it says with respect to the Pitzua Daka person with the crushed Beitzim, it says that the Rashi says that's not going to be considered because that's not by a psul of lineage, that's just a different kind of psul. So Rabbi Yossi says there are 5 times it says the word kahal, and that is not allowed to marry into the kahal. And one is to tell us that a chadal kohanim, one is to tell us that a mamzer cannot marry the kohanim. Chadal avim, one is to tell us they can't marry Levi. Chadal Yisrael, they can't marry Yisrael. We're on top of 73a. V'chadal mishrei mamzer b'shtuki. One is to tell us that a mamzer can marry a shtuki. A shtuki is somebody who is, we don't know who the father is. V'chadal mishrei shtuki b'Yisrael. One is to tell us that a shtuki can marry a regular Jew. But says the Gemara, kahal gerim lo liquid kahal. According to Rabbi Yossi, the converts are not called the kahal, whereas Rabbi Yehuda says kohan levim mechad kahal naki. He says no, we have an extra pasuk because the kohan and levim are both included within one pasuk of the kahal. One time the word kahal appears, and yoter el kahal gerim, and so therefore we have this extra pasuk, and that's to teach us that the gerim are going to be considered a kahal, and therefore mamzer cannot marry a convert. The same, or alternatively, Ninu. So, or you can have an alternative answer. And what's the alternative answer? The alternative answer is that Kohanim Leviim are also considered to be two separate kahals, and so therefore we don't have an extra one for the care. However, we could combine a different one. We could combine the mamzer b'shtuki, the mamzer with the shtuki, with the one whose father we don't know who he is, and the shtuki b'Yisrael, and the fact that a shtuki can also marry into the Yisrael, that is also going to be those are also going to be combined into one pasuk according to this approach. And so therefore, we're going to have an extra one. And how do we learn that out? We learn out from the fact that it says lo yavo lo mamzer b'kal Hashem, that a mamzer cannot marry into the kal Hashem, which means Mamzer vada Yehuda Yago, that if it's a sir mamzer, he can't marry into the cow. Hamamzer safek yavo, but like a shtuki who's a mamzer out of a doubt, he can marry into the community. And also the cow vada Yehuda Yago, he can't marry into a certain community, into the certain cow. Habakal safek yavo, but Yisrael can marry so who is a mamzer prohibited to marry into somebody who is a certain Yisrael can only not marry a certain mamzer, but if it's a suffix mamzer, therefore the Yisrael can marry the shtuki. And then the Gemara says a third approach. By the same that's also the mamzer shtuki and the mamzer with the shtuki, or we could say the suffix mamzer with the Yisrael. These are also two different kahals. The time of Rabbi Yehuda Miyacha, but Rabbi Yehuda has a different reason why he includes the convert as somebody who cannot marry mamzer, because he learns that from a different pasuk. That it says about the kahal, it says hakal, this community, it says chuka achas lachem. There'll be one law for you and for the convert who lives amongst you. And so therefore it proves from here that those who live amongst you are called the kahal, where that the convert is called a kahal, whereas Rabbi Yossi says that the convert is not called a kahal. Where does he learn out from? He says chuka achas ifsikayin. He says from the fact that it says chuka achas in between the kahal and the ger, that interrupts the matter. So then the Gemara says echad ger v'echad evan meshuchrar v'chol mutar b'kohenes. Whether it's a convert or a freed slave or a halal, they're allowed to marry into the kohenes. Gemara says, Messiah Rav, this is a proof for Rav's position. Number of Yehuda Rav, that they can marry Kohanis. But this is a proof for Rav's position, because what does Rabbi Yehuda say in the name of Rav? That the Kesheros, these women who are coming from kosher families, are not prohibited to marry into the psulim. They're not prohibited to marry into the disqualified families. And from here we see that the Kohenes is allowed to marry the Evan Meshuchor, the Halal, and the Ger. There's no problem with it. So now the Gemara tells us an incident. Darash Rabbi Zera, the Mechuzah. Rabbi Zera gave a drasha in Mechuzah, and he said, Ger mutar b'mamzeres. He said a convert could marry into a mamzeres, and in allowing the convert to marry into mamzeres, he's basically saying the mamzeres is not included in the Kal Hashem. So Regamu Kuli Alma Besrogayu, everybody threw their esrogim at him. The commentaries discuss why, but maybe it just happened on Sukkot, I was thinking. So they had esrogim, gave a drasha there. So Amarava Mika de Darish Milsaki Hai Bedukta de Shlicha Giyuri. He said, how can you be so insensitive? Excuse me. To teach us in a place where the converts are found, and you're saying that they're not part of Kahal Yisrael. So Darash Rav ben Mechuzah, so therefore Rav taught in Mechuzah, Ger mutar b'kohenes, that the convert is allowed to marry in the kohenes. So he taught that, and then he taught, so ta'unu b'shirai, so they put all these silk on him, they loved him, he gave them a psak that they wanted, that a convert can marry a kohenes. But then other darashlu, but then he went back and he made a drasha, Ger mutar b'mamzeres, but then he made the drasha that a convert can also marry mamzeres. Not only can she marry kohenes because Israelis, a woman is allowed to marry one of the psulim, but he then came along and said that the convert can marry the mamzeres because the convert is not part of the kahal. So now they got upset at him. They didn't like what he said. So Amrulay, they said to him, Afsida lekamaisa, you lost all the street cred. You got the first one, now you lost it. Amro, he said to them, he said to them, no, I did a favor for you because if you can marry now this woman from either side, you can marry her if you want to find a nice. Basically, if the ger wants, he can marry the kohenes, and if he wants to, he can marry the mamzer. So either way, it comes out ahead. What's the halacha? Ger mutar bekohenes and mutar b'mamzeres. The kamer can marry a kohenes, and the kamer can marry mamzeres. Kamer can marry the kohenes because because the ksheros, the kosher women, are not prohibited from marrying the disqualified women, the disqualified men. And he can marry the mamzeres because, like Rabbi Yossi, who says that the kamer is not considered part of the cow. So now, what is the shituki? The Mishnah said, "Elo and shtuki kol shemakir." Anybody who knows who his mother is but doesn't know his father. So it says Rava Dvar Torah. We know that biblically speaking, shtuki kosher. Biblically speaking, a shtuki, one who knows his mother but not his father, is a kosher. What's the reason? My time. But the reason is Rov ksherim etzla etzla. Most of the people of the men who she would be with in the town are kosher to be with her. Umiut psuin etzla, where just the minority are disqualified to be with her. And so therefore, if one of the men was with her, we would say called a parish being ruba parish. We're going to say anybody who separates from the majority, and so therefore we follow the principle that the majority are kosher, and so therefore the offspring is kosher. So the Gemara says, "And my amers, what would you want to say to maybe say that his shtuki is not okay? Maybe she went to the men, and therefore avle kavua." The kol kavua I mean, therefore it's like a fixed thing, and everything that's fixed is like 50-50, and then we don't follow majority more. But Torah Amra, well, you have a mamzer, and then maybe the offspring is a mamzer, and so we can't marry in. Gemara says, no, mamzer vade udu yavo, a mamzer suffik yavo. No, we learn from here that only if it's a certain mamzer can he not marry in, and if it's an ambiguous mamzer, like a shtuki, he can't marry in. And bekal vade udu yavo, he can't marry into the certain community, but the mamzer can marry a ka'al safik, and so therefore the mamzer can marry a shtuki. So, and that's their case. So, what's the reason why they said that a shtuki rabbinically cannot marry into the Jewish people? Because maybe, since we don't know who it is, maybe he's going to end up marrying his paternal sister. He doesn't know who his father was. He'll end up marrying his sister. So if that's the case, so then how could we just said a shtuki can marry a mamzer and a shtuki can for sure marry a shtukis? So why are they allowed to marry? Maybe they're marrying siblings. Gemara says, "Kol kiani mizano v'azli." Do we have to assume that that it's one guy making all the trouble in the town, and therefore that we don't have to assume that they're siblings? Gemara says, "But shtuki lo yisa." But okay, at the same point, the offspring of a shtuki. That we should say rabbinically, a regular Jew can't marry such a person. Because maybe he's marrying his father's sister. So meaning to say, even if we don't say that the shisuki was the father of both the shisuki man, even if we don't want to say that there's one father is for both the shisuki man and the shisuki daughter, because we don't want to say it's the one man going around, but we could say that the shisuki could be the father of the shisuki can end up being the father of the one who he's married to can end up being his sister, because he could have married this woman and she could end up being his sister. So basically, if the shisuki gets married to somebody else, it's possible that father who she married, that man who she married was this man's father. And so therefore, we should have to be concerned. So the Gemara says, no, we're not going to say that. Why? Because we say it's not common. So if that's the case, so it should say it's also uncommon that if you marry this shisuki or shisuki, that she's your sister. So they made a mala b'yochsin. They made an extra stringency in yochsin. That's the only reason, but you don't have to be strict about it. So they made it by the shisuki, but not by. But we don't have this concern in the case of the daughter of a shisuki. We don't have that concern that daughter of the shisuki, her father is your father. Amarava, now we say the same thing about, we have basically the same discussion by a Sufi. Amarava, Devar Torah, Sufi kosher. Biblically speaking, and a Sufi is just a baby you find in the marketplace. You don't know who the father and the mother is. Biblically speaking, we're going to say it's kosher, my timer. A woman, a married woman would say that can assume that that the offspring comes from her husband. Ma'ika, what's the concern? Mira Russo, what's the concern that maybe there's a minority of women who were betrothed and were adulterous while they were betrothed, or there's another minority of women whose husbands go overseas and kimin diika penuya, but since there are also unmarried women who left around, meaning, say, you might have thought that this child who was found in the marketplace, which comes from Zanarusa, who was pregnant, who was adulterous, or else a woman whose husband went overseas who was adulterous. But since there are also unmarried women who also have children and leave them there, and there are also women who leave their child, Rahman al-Islam, in the marketplace. They just drop them off because they're too poor. Have a palga. So therefore, we're going to say it's 50-50 chance that this is a mamzer. And the Torah says you can't marry mamzer, but who's the one who we can't marry? Mamzer vada yavo can only not marry a certain mamzer. Or mamzer suffix yavo, but if it's a doubtful mamzer, you can marry. And bekal vada yavo, mamzer can only not marry into the certain kahal, certainly Jewish, but bekal suffix yavo. And the Gemara says, what's the reason why Rabbi said Asufe is disqualified? Because maybe he's going to end up marrying his sibling without realizing. If that's the case, on my time, Asufis lo Yisa, Shema Yisa Choso Bein Me'av Bein Me'ima. Well, if that's the case, Asufi should not marry to an Asufis because maybe he's ending up marrying his maternal sibling. So the Gemara says, Kohani Shadi Vaz. No, we're not going to assume that all the basically found children are siblings. But the Gemara says, but Basa Sufi will Yisa. Yeah, but you should still not be able to marry the daughter of the Asufi because maybe her husband is your father. So the Gemara Shema Yisa Choso. Maybe he's marrying his sister because maybe her father is your father. Elo lo shliach. We say it's not common, and achanami lo shliach. So why don't we say in this case also it's not common? So the Gemara says al so we just did a mawa, a stringency, but we don't extend it to the daughter of an Asufi or the daughter of a Shtuki. It's just to the Asufi or the Shtuki themselves. It says the Gemara, Amar Rava bar Afuna. So it says Rava bar Afuna Mitzalmo. So we find the baby in the marketplace, and we wonder if he's Jewish. So if we find him circumcised, then we're going to say Ein bo mishum Asufi. We don't consider him an Asufi. We don't consider him an Asufi under those circumstances. Rashi says, "Do you have the kosher?" Because if he wasn't a kosher baby, we'll have a tercha mimole. The mother wouldn't have cared to circumcise. But mishalti adamaya. Let's say he found him with his body parts straightened out. That which is they would do to their children after a period of time, they would straighten out their bodies. That's also Imron Mishum Asufi. That's also not an indication of Asufi. Shayaf Mishcha, let's say the child was found rubbed with oil, or powdered with eyes, powder on the eyes to make him look very beautiful. Rami Chumri, or knots around him, or Tali Pitka, or with amulets hanging from his neck. Tali Kamiya, amulets of spices hanging from him. All these are not considered Asufi. We say that these are children who are full-born Jewish and they were trying to save them. They were not adulterous. Tali B'dikle, let's say found them hanging from a palm tree. Now, if a wild animal could reach him, then we're going to consider him an Asufi because the person left him to die. Otherwise, not an Asufi. Zardata smicha macha. Let's say he was found on a type of tree near the city. Yesh b'mishum asufi. Then we're going to say there's an asufi because it's too dangerous because that's the type of tree. That's the type of tree that you would be concerned that the baby would die if it was there. But otherwise, if it's not near the city, then it will be safe. The concern there, Rashi says, was demons. Okay. Bacon ish let's say he found the baby in a shul near the city. A lot of people there. Clearly, they wanted to save him, so it's not a sufi. Otherwise, it's in a sufi. Remember, a high period is sufi. This, if you found the baby in a ditch used for storing dates, that's in a sufi. Charifta dinara, let's say he found the baby in the river, he's not a sufi. Pishrei, but let's say if he was found in the water that was melting by the riverbanks, that would be dangerous, so that's an asufi. If you found him on the side of Rishus Harabim, he's not considered a sufi. Rishus Harabim, if you found him in the public domain, then it's an asufi, because we're going to say that would be very dangerous. He could have a guest get run over. You can run him over, God forbid. Rava says in time of famine, it's not an asufi. Because there she wasn't trying to kill him, but the mother was just abandoning him because she couldn't feed him. Mar says, what is Rava's statement referring to? It refers to the case where he found the baby in the public domain, in the public street. I did the Shnei Ravon cut away. So just because it's a famine, they're going to kill him. That doesn't make sense. Now, it refers to the size of the public domain. But Mayor Yeshnei Ravon, what's the year? Why do we say only if it's in time of a famine? I feel below Shnei Ravon, that child is not an Asufi, because we said that was a protected place. So when Rava said if in time of famine the child's not a Sufi, he said about the following: where he said, "Called man shebashuk." As long as the baby's in the marketplace, of the father and mother are believed to say that this is my baby and I put him there. But once he's taken up from the marketplace, they're not believed to say it's there. It's my time. Amarava, all the yatzal of Shema Sufi, because since he was called a Sufi, he can't undo it. But in the time of famine, even though he was gathered up from the marketplace, the father and the mother are believed about him. So since we're talking about that, we believe the father and mother that he's their child if he's still in the marketplace. Rav Chisda teaches us that there are three people whose testimony is believed, but only if they say it immediately. Rav Chisda, there are three people whose testimony is believed if they say it immediately. Asufe, this is the Asufi, the parents of the Asufi, if they see him in the marketplace, if they say while he's still in the marketplace. The Chaya, we'll see what this refers to, the woman who is the midwife, Upoteras Chavusan, the woman, and the one who is releasing her friend from being in need. We'll see what that means. Asufi Adamra, in the case of the Sufi, is that which we just said. Now we believe the parents if the child is still in the marketplace. What's the case of the Chaya? The Tanya Chaya Ne'amenes Omar Zeyot Zarisham Zeyot Zasheni. A midwife is believed to say that this one came out first, and this one came out second. She's believed to say who the firstborn of the twins are. When do we say this? When the baby didn't stick its hand out and then stick it back in, or excuse me, when the midwife didn't leave the room and come back. But if she went out and she came back, she's not believed. Melazar says, if she remained in her position, she is believed. But if she moved around within the room, she's not believed. What's the difference? If she turned her face. So according to the Tanakama, she's believed as long as she didn't leave the room. According to Rebbe Lezer, if she turned her face, she's not believed. What's the case of Poteras Chavrusa? What's one who a woman releases her friend is believed only if she answers immediately? What's the case? Let's say we learned in the Mishnah in Nida. Let's say there are three women lying down on the bed. They were sleeping in one bed, and one of them has blood underneath them. And you find the blood on the mattress. So then we're going to say Kulan Tameos. We have to suspect that all of them are Nidas, and therefore they're all Tamei. But let's say one of them checked it out. We discovered that one of them checked, and she says, I'm the one who had the dam. He Tuma V'Kulan Taurus, and we believe her, and all the other two women are going to be Tahora. And Amar Chisda Shabbat Tzman Kashir Vesis. That's only if she checked herself right away. If she didn't check herself right away, we're not going to believe her. Tan Rabbanan. A midwife is if there are multiple women in the delivery room, the woman is believed to say, "Oh, this is the one from the Kohen, this is one from the Levi. This is one for the Nasim, and this is the Mamzer." When do we say this? Shalokaro Hashem error. When nobody was challenging the lineage of the child. Nobody's arguing with her. Avakara error, but if somebody's arguing with her in an menace, we're not going to believe her. Why not? Error demai. What kind of challenge? If you say one witness, why would we believe the one witness? You need to have two witnesses to challenge her. No error tray, so it's a challenge of two witnesses. So that's how we would not believe her anymore. Even one witness. When Rabbi Yochanan says there's no challenge unless there's two witnesses, the kashrus. That's only where there's a chazaka of kashrus, but there's no presumptive status here because it wasn't established. Therefore, chad nami mem, and also one witness is believed to challenge her. Okay, so this is a very powerful daf, and we'll stop here.